Maya Rodriguez had gotten used to being the only human in advanced xenobiology, which honestly wasn't saying much since she was probably the only human stupid enough to take advanced xenobiology in the first place. The Galactic University's most prestigious course was packed with beings who made her feel like she'd wandered into a fever dream designed by someone who'd never met a geometry textbook they didn't want to violate. Professor Keth Lawn floated at the front of the classroom, his crystalline body refracting light in ways that probably violated several laws of physics. He was the kind of professor who pronounced his name with 17 silent letters and expected everyone to remember which vowels were supposed to make your throat close up. Today, class, we shall present our assigned projects on apex predators from your respective homeworlds, Keth Lawn announced, his voice resonating like wind chimes in a hurricane. This exercise will demonstrate the remarkable diversity of evolutionary pinnacles across our galaxy. Maya glanced around the classroom. Zark, the insectoid from Hive Prime, was clicking his mandibles in what she'd learned was either excitement or a prelude to regurgitation. Blorin, whose tentacles never stopped moving, was already shuffling through holographic notes that looked like they'd been written in squid ink. And Velox, the reptilian whose scales changed color based on mood, was currently displaying what Maya had dubbed smug green. I do hope our human exchange student has found something adequate to present, Keth Lawn said, his prismatic eyes focusing on Maya with the kind of benevolent condescension usually reserved for toddlers showing off crayon drawings. The snickering started immediately. Maya had grown accustomed to being the galaxy's favorite punchline. Humans were the pink squishies who'd somehow stumbled into space travel despite being made of meat and bad decisions. They were soft, slow, and had the survival instincts of a particularly optimistic lemming. "Oh, I'm sure it'll be adorable," Blorin gurgled, his tentacles writhing with amusement. "What's the human apex predator? A house cat? A particularly aggressive hamster?" Maya smiled and pulled out her tablet, making a show of organizing her notes. The thing about being underestimated was that it gave you a certain tactical advantage, like being the only person in the room who knew what a surprise party was. "Actually," Maya said, her voice carrying just enough confidence to make a few aliens pause their giggling, "I think you'll find Earth's apex predators quite interesting." She'd spent weeks preparing this presentation, and she'd learned something important about her classmates. They were all academic overachievers from worlds where the scariest thing they'd ever encountered was a pop quiz. They thought they understood predation because they'd read about it in textbooks. Maya understood predation because she'd grown up on a planet where the ocean was full of things that could kill you, the land was full of things that could kill you, and humans had looked at all of it and decided it seemed like a fun place to build water parks. Zark went first, naturally. The insectoid loved being the center of attention, which was ironic considering his species communicated primarily through pheromones that smelled like a gas station bathroom. Behold. Zark clicked, projecting a hologram of something that looked like a wasp had been crossbred with a city bus. The megavespoid of Hive Prime, 20 meters long, capable of spitting acid that can dissolve titanium, and equipped with a stinger that delivers enough neurotoxin to paralyze a space cruiser. The class murmured appreciatively. Maya had to admit it was impressive in a things that would make you wet yourself kind of way. "Most fascinating," Professor Keth Lawn chimed. "The evolutionary pressure to develop such extreme chemical warfare capabilities speaks to a truly hostile environment." Zark's mandibles clicked smugly. "Indeed. Our ancestors had to develop superior intellect and collective coordination to survive such threats. It's what makes us natural xenobiologists." Maya made a note. Bugs think they're smart because they learn to run away from big scary bugs. Blorin went next, his presentation accompanied by the kind of ambient ocean sounds that made Maya homesick. His apex predator was something called a mind ripper, which looked like an octopus that had been designed by someone who thought regular octopuses weren't horrifying enough. "The mind ripper," Blorin explained, his tentacles weaving hypnotic patterns, "doesn't just hunt prey. It infiltrates their neural networks, taking control of entire schools of fish, forcing them to swim directly into its waiting maw. It can control up to 1,000 minds simultaneously. Remarkable, Kethlon said. A perfect example of how evolution favors efficiency over brute force. The presentation continued with Velox describing something called a void worm that was apparently the size of a space station and fed on asteroids. Maya wasn't entirely sure how something that ate rocks qualified as a predator, but she wasn't about to interrupt the flow of alien one-upmanship. Each presentation followed the same pattern, some impossibly large, but impossibly dangerous creature that their species had learned to avoid through superior technology and careful habitat management. The underlying message was clear. Civilized species used their intelligence to stay away from things that could kill them. Maya found this philosophy adorable. These presentations demonstrate the universal truth. Professor Kethlon concluded after the last alien had finished describing their planet's equivalent of a Lovecraftian nightmare. That apex predators represent evolutionary dead ends. They are powerful but ultimately limited by their own specialization. True evolutionary success comes from developing the intelligence to transcend such base survival mechanisms. The class nodded sagely, except for Maya, who was trying not to laugh. She'd grown up on a planet where the apex predator's idea of transcending base survival mechanisms was to invent extreme sports. Miss Rodriguez, Kethlon said, his crystalline form somehow managing to convey patronizing patience, please share your homeworld's apex predator with us. I'm certain it will provide an interesting contrast to what we've seen. Maya stood up, tablet in hand, and smiled at the room full of beings who were about to learn why humans were the only species in the galaxy that looked at danger, do not enter signs, and thought they were suggestions. Maya tapped her tablet, and a serene blue hologram filled the room. Gentle waves lapped against digital shores while peaceful underwater scenes played in slow motion. The class visibly relaxed, leaning back in their various seats, pods, and perching arrangements. Earth, Maya began, her voice taking on the tone of a nature documentary narrator, is what we call an ocean world. 71% of our planet's surface is covered in water. Blorin's tentacles stopped their constant motion. Oh, like my homeworld. How pleasant. I assume your aquatic predators are similarly elegant in their neural manipulation techniques? Not exactly, Maya said, still smiling. Earth's oceans are home to a group of creatures we call sharks. The hologram shifted to show a sleek, gray form gliding through crystal clear water. It moved with the kind of effortless grace that suggested it had been designed by someone who really understood hydrodynamics. Several aliens cooed simultaneously. It's rather cute, Velox observed, his scales shifting to a pleased purple. Very streamlined. I assume it's some sort of filter feeder? Maya's smile widened. Oh, they filter things all right. They filter out the living from the soon-to-be dead. She clicked to the next slide, showing a closer view of the shark's head. Sharks are cartilaginous fish, which means their skeletons are made of cartilage rather than bone. This makes them lighter and more flexible in the water. Fascinating, Professor Kethlon said, though his tone suggested he found it about as fascinating as watching paint dry. And how large do these sharks typically grow? Oh, it varies, Maya said casually. The smallest ones are about 6 inches long. Very cute. The largest ones we've found so far are about 60 feet. The room went quiet for exactly 3 seconds. I'm sorry, Zark clicked. Did you say 60 feet? Well, that's just the whale sharks, Maya said, as if discussing the weather. They're actually filter feeders, so they're basically the gentle giants of the ocean. They eat plankton and small fish, completely harmless to humans. The collective sigh of relief was audible. Now, the great whites, Maya continued, advancing to the next slide. Those are a different story. The new hologram showed a torpedo-shaped predator with black eyes and rows of triangular teeth. Unlike the peaceful whale shark, the This one looked like it had been designed by someone who'd been asked to create the most efficient killing machine possible and had decided to add a few extra features just for fun. Great whites typically grow to about 15 to 20 feet long, Maya said conversationally. They're what we call apex predators, which means they're at the top of their food chain. Nothing hunts them. Except your species, I assume? Professor Keth Lawn said. Surely your advanced technology allows you to avoid such creatures. Maya tilted her head, as if considering this. Avoid them? Oh, Professor, I think there's been a misunderstanding. We don't avoid sharks, we swim with them. The silence that followed was the kind of silence that usually preceded someone calling security. Maya clicked to the next slide, which showed a timeline stretching back into the prehistoric depths of Earth's history. The sharks appeared early and just kept going. The really interesting thing about sharks, Maya said, her voice taking on the enthusiasm of someone discussing their favorite hobby, is how long they've been around. We're talking about 400 million years. Bloren's tentacles had gone completely still, which Maya had learned was the equivalent of a human stopping mid-sentence with their mouth hanging open. 400 million years, Maya repeated, letting the number sink in. They survived the Permian extinction, the one that killed 90% of all life on Earth. They survived the asteroid that took out the dinosaurs. They survived ice ages, volcanic eruptions, and continental drift. They'd been perfecting the art of being apex predators since before trees existed. Surely, Volok said, his scales now a nervous yellow, such ancient creatures must be primitive by modern standards? Maya laughed, and it wasn't entirely a nice laugh. Primitive. These things have electroreception capabilities that put most of our sensors to shame. They can detect electrical fields as small as 0.5 billionth of a volt. Do you know what that means? The class stared at her blankly. It means they can sense your heartbeat from across the room, Maya explained helpfully. Every muscle contraction, every nerve impulse. They can detect a fish hiding in sand by the electrical activity of its gills. She clicked to the next slide, showing a cross-section of a shark's head with its sensory organs highlighted. They also have what we call a lateral line system which detects water movement and pressure changes. They can sense a fish swimming from over a mile away. And their sense of smell? Maya paused for effect. They can detect 1 drop of blood in 25 gallons of water. Some species can smell blood from over a mile away. Professor Keth Lawn's crystalline form had stopped refracting light in pretty patterns and was now just sort of flickering. But surely, he said weakly, your species has developed appropriate containment protocols. Safe observation methods? Oh, we observe them all right, Maya said cheerfully. We call it cage diving. We get in a metal cage, they lower us into shark-infested waters, and we watch them swim around us while we're completely helpless. That sounds, Zark's mandibles clicked uncertainly, inadvisable. It gets better, Maya continued. Some people do it without the cage. We call that free diving with sharks. It's considered a recreational activity. The color had drained from Velox's scales entirely. He was now a pale, sickly white. But that's not even the best part, Maya said, clicking to a new slide showing various shark species. See, when I said great whites grow to 20 feet, I was talking about the average ones. We've recorded great whites over 23 feet long. And they're not even the biggest predatory sharks. She clicked again. Meet the tiger shark. They'll eat literally anything. Fish, seals, birds, turtles, garbage, other sharks, license plates, boots, and on at least one occasion, a full suit of armor. They're like the universe's garbage disposal. Except the garbage disposal is 12 feet long and has a really bad attitude. The room had gone so quiet that Maya could hear the hum of the environmental systems. And then there's the bull shark, Maya said, her voice dropping to what could only be described as a horror movie whisper. Bull sharks can swim in both salt and fresh water. They've been found in rivers, lakes, and golf course water hazards. They're responsible for more attacks on humans than any other species, and do you know why? Nobody answered. Maya wasn't sure anybody was still breathing. Because they live where humans live, she said simply. They're not out in the deep ocean minding their own business. They're in 3 feet of water at the beach where children play. Maya was really hitting her stride now. The class sat in stunned silence as she clicked through slide after slide of evolutionary nightmares that had somehow become Earth's tourist attractions. Now, you might be thinking, Maya said, pacing in front of the holographic display, surely humans have developed some kind of early warning system? Some way to detect these creatures before entering the water? She paused, letting the hope build in their terrified little alien hearts. We have, she said. We call them lifeguards. They're usually teenagers with whistles. Zark made a sound like a deflating balloon. But here's the thing that really makes sharks special, Maya continued, clicking to a video of a great white launching itself completely out of the water to catch a seal. They don't just swim fast. They breach. That's when they come completely out of the water. A 2-ton great white can launch itself 15 feet into the air. The video played in slow motion, showing the massive predator suspended in mid-air, jaws open, looking like something that had escaped from a fever dream about flying death machines. And speaking of jaws, Maya said, zooming in on a shark's mouth, let's talk about their teeth. Sharks don't just have sharp teeth. They have rows and rows of sharp teeth. When they lose one, another one rotates forward to replace it. A single shark can go through 30,000 teeth in its lifetime. She clicked to a comparison chart. Great white shark bite force, 4,000 pounds per square inch. For comparison, a human bite is about 200 pounds per square inch. A great white could bite through a small spacecraft. Professor Kethlon made a sound like breaking glass. But wait, there's more, Maya said, because apparently she had decided to traumatize her entire xenobiology class. Sharks don't chew their food. They bite off chunks and swallow them whole. When they attack, they often don't mean to kill their prey immediately. They bite, then wait for it to bleed out and weaken before coming back to finish the job. Bloren's tentacles were now wrapped around his body like he was trying to comfort himself. This is a species of pure nightmare. Oh, Bloren, Maya said, her voice full of false sympathy, you haven't even heard the best part yet. Everything I've told you about sharks, all of this evolutionary perfection, all of this apex predator nightmare fuel? She paused, looking around the room at the collection of traumatized alien faces. Humans think they're cute. The silence was deafening. We make documentaries about them, Maya continued relentlessly. Shark Week is one of our most popular television events. We have amusement park rides themed around them. Children have shark-shaped backpacks and lunchboxes. We have a movie franchise called Jaws that's considered a classic, and instead of being a cautionary tale about staying out of the ocean, it made people want to go shark watching. Velox had progressed beyond pale and was now translucent. We have research programs where scientists tag sharks and follow them around the ocean, Maya said. Not to avoid them, but to study them. We have shark sanctuaries where we protect them from other threats. We have dive tourism where people pay money to get in the water with them. But surely, Professor Kethlon said, his voice barely above a whisper, surely your species recognizes the danger? Surely there are warnings, restrictions? Maya smiled, and it was the smile of someone who was about to deliver the killing blow. Oh, there are warnings, she said. We put up signs that say danger, sharks present. And do you know what humans do when they see those signs? She clicked to her final slide, a photo of a crowded beach with a warning sign in the foreground and hundreds of humans playing in the water in the background. They take selfies with the signs and go swimming anyway. Maya looked around the room at the collection of shell-shocked alien faces and decided it was time for the grand finale. She'd brought them this far down the rabbit hole of human insanity. Might as well show them how deep it really went. "But here's the thing," Maya said, her voice taking on a conspiratorial tone that made everyone lean forward despite themselves. "Everything I've told you about sharks? All of this terror, all of this evolutionary perfection." She paused, savoring the moment. "Sharks aren't Earth's apex predator." The silence that followed was so complete that Maya wondered if she'd accidentally broken the universal translator. "The apex predator on Earth," Maya continued, "is humans." Professor Keth Lon's crystalline form flickered like a dying light bulb. "I'm sorry, what?" "Humans," Maya repeated cheerfully. "We hunt sharks. For sport. We catch them, kill them, and turn them into soup. We've driven several species to near extinction. We're so good at killing sharks that we've had to create international protection laws to keep ourselves from wiping them out entirely." She clicked back to the image of the great white shark. "Remember this magnificent apex predator that survived for 400 million years. Humans kill about 100 million of them every year. Not for food, not for territory, not for survival. We kill them for their fins, which we use to make soup that doesn't even taste like much." Bloren's tentacles had gone completely limp. "You're saying that your species is more dangerous than those things?" "Oh, we're not just more dangerous," Maya said, warming to her theme. "We're more dangerous while simultaneously being completely insane. Other species develop intelligence to avoid predators. Humans developed intelligence to seek them out." She began counting on her fingers. "We have people who wrestle alligators for entertainment. We have people who climb mountains because they're there. We have people who jump out of perfectly good aircraft for fun. We have people who surf tsunamis, swim with jellyfish that can kill you with a touch, and keep tigers as pets." "This is madness," Zark clicked weakly. "You want to know what's really madness?" Maya asked. "We're the only species in the galaxy that looked at the vast, deadly emptiness of space and thought, you know what? That looks fun. Let's go explore it." She gestured around the classroom. "Every other species we've met developed space travel as a necessity. Trade, resource acquisition, colonial expansion. Humans developed space travel because we got bored with only having one planet's worth of dangerous things to poke with sticks." Professor Keth Lon made a sound like wind chimes in a blender. "This explains so much about human behavior patterns. The Galaxy Council keeps asking why humans volunteer for the most dangerous missions," Maya continued. "Why we're the only species that actually requests hazardous duty assignments. It's because we're the only species that thinks hazardous duty sounds like a good time." She packed up her tablet with the casual air of someone who had just explained why water was wet. "We're a species that survived on a planet where everything wanted to kill us by becoming the thing that everything else wanted to avoid. We didn't climb to the top of the food chain through superior technology or collective intelligence. We climbed to the top of the food chain by being completely, utterly insane." Maya slung her bag over her shoulder and looked around the room one more time. "Any questions?" The silence stretched on for what felt like geological ages. "Class dismissed," Professor Keth Lon whispered, his voice barely audible. As Maya walked toward the door, she could hear the whispered conversations starting behind her. Words like terrifying, apex predator, and how did we let them into space? Drifted through the air. She paused at the doorway and turned back to the room full of traumatized aliens. "Oh, one more thing," she said casually. "Everything I just told you about sharks? That's just one type of predator from our oceans. We also have giant squids, barracuda, moray eels, and something called a Portuguese man-of-war that's technically not even a single organism but a colony of creatures that decided to work together to be more efficiently deadly." She smiled brightly. "See you all next week for my presentation on terrestrial predators." I'm thinking of covering either bears or honey badgers. Maya walked out of the classroom, leaving behind a room full of aliens who were beginning to understand why humans were the only species crazy enough to volunteer for first contact missions. After all, when your idea of a fun weekend involves activities that could kill you, meeting potentially hostile alien civilizations was just Tuesday.